Should an older, a 40 plus practitioner of Jiu-Jitsu compete? Well, let's take a little wander down this path and try to figure the situation out. For me, whether you're an older practitioner or a practitioner of any age, the question and the answer is kind of the same thing. The parameters are the same. I believe that everyone should compete at least once. And there are a few reasons for this. I'll get into the reasons momentarily. I will also say that I personally don't require competition or any sort of competition track record to promote for belt promotions. I know that some places do. The schools that are more sort of sport oriented, there are some places that require you to have competed at least once, maybe even once at every belt level, before you can progress, before you can get a promotion. For me, Jiu-Jitsu is about far more than competition. There is, of course, there's the self-defense aspect, self-protection, but there's also the lifestyle aspect of Jiu-Jitsu. Many people get into the art with no interest, no idea about competition, no interest in competing. For them, it's about the fitness aspect. It's about engaging themselves mentally, emotionally. It's about the camaraderie of having a team around them that can grow and develop with them. So for this reason, I promote based more on your understanding and your ability to apply the art as opposed to whether or not you've competed. But again, having said all that, I do believe that competition is an incredible mechanism for testing the veracity, for testing the honesty of your jiu-jitsu, of your technique, and for growth. When you are sparring with your training partners at your local club, that's one thing. There's always a certain competitiveness, even a certain rivalry involved in that. But it is a far cry from the level of intensity that you will experience in a true competitive environment. When you step onto the mat against someone who doesn't know you, doesn't particularly care about you, and is doing everything they can and has trained probably for months to be able to take you down, control you, and finish you, and you put that all in a live environment with a crowd that's roaring, with a referee, with points on the line, with honor, respect, the good name of your club at stake, all these things. It's a very different animal from just sparring with your mates at an open mat on a Sunday afternoon. Very, very different things. The physiological difference, the adrenaline rush that you experience, just the growth as a practitioner and as a person that you experience going through the training required for such a thing, let alone stepping onto the mat, mastering your fear, mastering your anxiety. I believe these are all incredibly valuable aspects of competition. Aside from winning is irrelevant. For me, it's the old cliche, it's the taking part that counts. So I do believe that everyone should compete at least once. And actually, I've heard it said that a person should compete twice. Once, the first time, just to do it. Win, lose, or draw, just to get on the mat, go through that fear, go through that experience, just to have done it. And then the second time, you compete to win. You compete like a sportsman or woman, with victory being your objective, being your destination. And so with all that in mind, when it comes to you as an individual, whether you're older, whether you're over 40, whether you're 18 years old, whatever it is, you must ask yourself, what is jiu-jitsu about for you? And this is going to change during the course of your life, during the course of your jiu-jitsu journey. Initially, maybe jiu-jitsu is about self-defense, maybe it's about fitness, maybe it's about losing weight, whatever it is. And later on, you may come to competition much later on in your journey, but right now, in this moment, what is jiu-jitsu about for you? Tap into that and go into it fully. If it's just about the camaraderie of having a club full of friends that you can hang out with and enjoy their company and, okay, work up a good sweat amongst them, then go fully into that. Don't feel obliged to compete if it's not something that you are drawn to. You are under no obligation to do anything. If you're paying a membership to a club to learn an art, you're under no obligation to compete at their behest. Because I know a lot of clubs, they put some pressure on their members. And for me, I'm not a big fan of this approach. As I said previously, jiu-jitsu is about far more than the competitive aspect. The lifestyle is so, it confers so many more benefits. But where is it for you? That's the question you have to answer, and it's an important question, and you must also understand that the answer will change as you go through your jiu-jitsu journey. For instructors, for jiu-jitsu instructors, I would say that competition is a requirement, because undoubtedly you're going to be coaching people that want to compete, and if you haven't tasted competition, if you haven't gone through the crucible, gone through the fire of competing, it's difficult for you to understand. You can get it intellectually, but you can't confer any experience. You can't share any sort of experience with your students, and I think this is doing a disservice to your students. So, for me, it should be a requirement that instructors have competed. Now, let's talk about the self-defense aspect of jiu-jitsu, self-protection. Now, for most of us in this day and age, luckily, the competition mat, the competition arena, is the closest we're ever going to come to an actual fight. A life and death situation, a self-protection situation. And that's a good thing. But if you are training specifically with self-defense in mind, I think that competition is a great way, again, to test the honesty of your jiu-jitsu, to test the veracity of your technique. Now, I've done a whole video on the place of jiu-jitsu in self-defense, in self-protection. The technique aspect of jiu-jitsu, and certainly the more sport-oriented jiu-jitsu, that I would question in terms of its value and application in a street self-protection situation. But in terms of testing your mental resolve, your emotional resolve, your ability to handle the adrenaline dump that you will go through, the exhaustion that you will experience in a competitive environment, especially the first time, and then to go through that. This is invaluable because, it's the closest you're going to come to, this is an invaluable experience because it's the closest you're going to come to a real life, the frenzy, the chaos, the uncertainty, the unpredictability, the wildness of a potential self-protection situation. So for this reason, I believe that competition has a huge amount of value. So what can you do to prepare yourself for competition, aside from the training, the technique side of things? A far larger aspect of competition is the mental aspect, is the mental game. There's the saying, 3 months out from a competition, your training is, or your preparation is 90% physical, 10% mental. As you get closer, the day of the competition, let's say, it's 10% physical, 90% mental. So what can you do on the day or the night before to prepare yourself mentally, emotionally for competition? Because this is something that I think is very overlooked by and large in the, not only in the jiu-jitsu community, but in sports and competitive endeavors in general. It's getting a lot more attention. There are sports psychologists and all this sort of stuff, and it's getting a lot more focus, but still it doesn't get the level of focus that the physical stuff gets. Everyone thinks it's about doing more reps, getting a better VO2 max, and these, of course, are crucial. But the psychology is just as important when it comes to the crunch. For me, there are a couple of things that resonate and have helped me in my competitive endeavors. The first is something called the parable of the plank. And this is a story that John Danaher tells about when he was a kid and some entertainer came to his school and got the kids to and put a plank, a 2x4 plank across 2 buildings, a couple of stories up, and cross the plank. Then he asked any of the kids if they wanted to do it, and of course the kids were too scared, so none of them put their hands up. Then he got the same plank, he put it on the ground, on the grass, in front of the kids, at the feet of the kids, and said, well, who wants to walk across the plank now? And of course they could all do it, and he asked them what was the difference. The plank itself hadn't changed. The only thing that had changed was the environment. But what they had to do and the means by which they had to do it was all the same thing. The only thing that changed was that the plank was on the ground in one instance and suspended above the ground in the other instance. And this is true of jiu-jitsu as well. When you are training at your club with your friends, most of us, we feel fairly relaxed. We're having a good time in that environment. Then when we get onto the competition arena, we freak out, we get the adrenaline, you know, our mind starts to race because it's a new environment. There's people watching, there is things are at stake, at least in our mind. But the reality is, all the things that matter, you, your opponent, the mat, those are all the same. The general environment has changed. Now there's a crowd, now there's a ref, but they don't have a direct influence on the course of the match unless you allow them to. Unless you allow them to get under your skin, get into your head and bother you. So the point is to remember as you step onto the competition mat that nothing has changed from the sessions where you were having a great time with your friends. There's just you and your opponent. Just as that is true at open mat on a Sunday afternoon where you're having a great time. So try and bring the Sunday afternoon open mat vibe to the competition vibe. Now that's not to say you aren't going there with an intention to win, to fight to win, but try and bring that ease, that Sunday afternoon feeling of relaxation and enjoyment to the competition. There's another story that I'll share with you that I think Royler Gracie tells, and that is when he was competing as a youngster. I think he was like 7 years old, something like that, very young kid. And he was very nervous. He was going up to compete. I think it was his first competition. And his dad, Elio, said to him, if you win, I'll buy you a present. If you lose, I'll buy you 2 presents. What does that mean? That's telling the young Royler Gracie that his dad doesn't care if he wins or loses. He's proud of him, he loves him just for getting on the mat. And he will reward him twice as much if he loses because he got on the mat, because he went through it, because he did it. And that is going to take the pressure off the mind of a young 7-year-old, and it should take the pressure off you as a 40-plus practitioner or whoever you are. Again, win, lose, or draw isn't as important as going through it. And the rewards that we or other people place on us, confer upon us, it's all arbitrary. It's all arbitrary and it's all meaningless. Now, of course, this is a choice. How much meaning you place in trophies, in rewards, in accolades, in the cheer of the crowd, it's all a choice. You can choose to place a lot of value on it, or you can choose to place not much value on it. And I believe that placing not too much value on these external things will enable you to compete more freely, to have more fun, to be more creative, and ultimately be a better competitor. So there we are, guys. That is my perspective on whether or not you should compete in jiu-jitsu as an older practitioner. Again, whether you're young, old, anywhere in between, I believe that competition has a huge value. It confers a huge amount of growth upon us as individuals. But I think a more important question to ask and answer is what is jiu-jitsu for you? What does it mean for you? Where are you at on your jiu-jitsu journey? And once you answer that question, you'll be in a better place to know whether or not competition is right or not right for you. So guys, look, if you like this video, if it gave you any food for thought, give it a like, subscribe to the channel, helps me spread the good word, and until then, I will see you next time.